screaming heavy metal! We rock!
But the evil that men do lives on.
We gonna bang your head!
You are now listening to the Music Mania Podcast, a hard-hitting show featuring all things hard rock and heavy metal. And now here are your hosts, the Twins of Chaos, Clint Switzer and Paul Lagana.
And it is our pleasure here on this week's Music Mania Podcast to welcome a living legend here in rock music. It is the voice of rock, Mr. Clint Hughes. Glenn, welcome to the show. How's everything going today, man?
Everything's going wonderful. And you, out there, all good?
Oh, all is well. On the phone with you, so this day could not be going any better, man. I tell you, and I just got my hands on your new solo album, which is Resonate, and it comes out November 4th. Just go into what this album, I mean, how this album came about, and just kind of how you must be excited. It's coming out here in just a couple weeks. From what I've heard, I don't want to give too much away, but it's really good, very melodic, very heavy. You must be really proud of this one.
I am. This album was written whilst I was recovering from double knee transplant surgeries, and it's an album of autobiographical songs about the human condition. I don't write songs about fictional things. I write about songs which people will understand because they're probably going through the same stuff as well, or they will go through it. So these songs were written in my studio, and I took them over to Europe and recorded them with my band in May and June, and now it's coming out. I'm very, very, very excited with this album.
Yeah, and head over to glennhughes.com. You can figure out how to pre-order it. Glenn, it's going to be on CD, vinyl, digital. I mean, you're crossing all the bounds here, getting all the medias. That's great. I thought everything had just gone to digital media. Great to see you can still get this on vinyl and CD because that's how it should be. And and you've got some great players on this thing. I mean, I think you even had Chad Smith from Red Hot Chili Peppers come in and play with you, didn't you?
Yeah, well, Chad's on all my work. He's for the last 15 years, Chad's been, on all of my solo albums. So we kind of have this unwritten law that wherever I go, he comes along with me. So we're best friends, and he brings so much. He brings his love, which is really important, but he brings so much groove to my music, and he's such a musical drummer, and one of the greatest drummers, in fact, possibly the greatest rock drummer we have on the planet. Again, but he's very, very musical, and he's a very funny young man.
He's absolutely wonderful in this album. I can't wait for people to hear this. Resonate, again, guys, comes out November 4th. I think it comes out next week, maybe Japan, on the 27th somewhere. So you can
right.
Yeah, you can probably get it early somewhere, get an advanced copy somewhere if you want to have it shipped from Japan. So this is really great. I mean, this is your first album in a few years, I think since maybe 2008. I mean, this is just great for you to be back here, and you've been on a tour. I mean, you've just been running hard, man, and a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer on top of that. What a busy year for you. That's a good thing.
I had the left knee replaced last December and the right knee replaced in January. So by the time of the Hall of Fame in April, I was still learning how to walk again. So some kind of May, I was ready to go out back on the road. So I went into Europe and did some festivals, and I stayed in Europe and we did the album, and then in the summer we played in North America, and then we just got back from South America last week, and in 2 weeks I'll be in Europe till Christmas. So, and Resonate comes out November 4, and the pre-orders are very strong, and we're all, as I say, all my camp, we're all very, very excited about the progression of this record.
Well, you mentioned, the knee replacements, and that's extremely excruciating. And it's funny, I was just listening to an interview with the reunited Dokken, and they talked about how they hadn't been in a room together for all these years. When they got back together, the topic of conversation had changed from, kind of the fun party stuff to what's your current ailment? Someone has a back, someone has arthritis. I mean, that's just, I guess that's just part of getting old.
It's the same as me. It's the same as me, man. It really is. People ask me, how do you still do it, and how can I do? I said, well, you got to number one, been given the gift to do to be an artist. It's a huge gift that's been given to you, freely given to you, and a lot of people mess with that gift, but I've stayed the course, and I write every day. I tour all the time, and I don't think it's been. I don't think any time other than this has been so wonderful for me. I'm so grateful to still be alive and on the right side of the grass.
Absolutely, and that's been kind of something that's really become more evident in the last year. I mean, losing guys like David Bowie, Lemmy Kilmister. I mean, it's just been a very tough year for that. And I look at you as someone, because you look amazing. You look great. You look like you're in your 40s. In fact, when you were on that metal show a few years ago, I think my girlfriend was like, "Who is that? I'm in love with that guy." I was like, "Well, that's Glenn Hughes. He's going to be a little bit older than you think he is, but he does look great." And you do, Glenn. And I mean, you've got to have a different perspective now, especially because I know you were. I think I read somewhere you were even roommates with David Bowie at one point, but just to you start losing people at this stage of your life,
No, I mean, David lived at my home for 6 months in the mid-70s, and this year we've lost 8 rock and roll stars, and I knew all of them. It's like, it's incredible to think of all these guys, Chris Squire and Andy Fraser and David Bowie and Prince and Lemmy. These guys, it's like, it's incredible, You think, and my doctor said to me, "Well, you're okay, Glenn." I mean, of course, I went to my doctor and made sure I was okay, So that's just, I fought so well to stay in recovery and recover from knee surgeries and heart surgery and blah, blah, blah. So I'm supremely grateful to still be doing what I do, and never been so happy as I have at this moment.
I'm so glad to hear that, and it just shows in your work and your live performances. And I was so mad I didn't get to see you on your run of shows here in the States. We're here in Kansas City, and weren't able to get to one of the shows, but hopefully this kind of continues. And I know you start.
I'll be back.
Oh, good. Well, that's great.
I'll be back. I'll be in the Midwest in the spring, so I'm coming back for sure. I love Kansas City, and I really look forward to coming back there. It's one of my favorite places, so it'll be great.
Oh, that's great news. And I know you start back up here November 8th, I believe, out in the UK, and you got a lot. You got Europe and South America. You're just running hard, Glenn, as hard as you've ever run, I think.
It's nonstop, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's crazy, but I enjoyed it.
Well, Glenn, now from now and forevermore, thank goodness, we will be able to refer to you as not only the voice of rock, but as a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. And that all happened back in April. And I think that, and you've said it before, and I think I agree 100%, because I find a lot of political things wrong with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I think that just for the recognition for these bands, for Deep Purple, for the fans. Now, I would have liked to have seen the Mach 3 and 4 lineups featured a little more. You and David Coverdale, man, you were hanging out there arm in arm, like, hey, that was great.
We can address that by saying that a certain element of Mark II didn't want David and I to perform. So let me just say this. David and I were completely fine with the fact that we were there to accept an award from the Hall of Fame. And there was no fighting, there was no bad vibe. We just did what we did, and we closed the show with my friends in Cheap Trick, and it was an interesting, and I'm actually an ambassador to the Hall of Fame now, so I'm very much involved with the organization. So it's been a really great thing for me, and David and I had a wonderful evening, and we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, you and David, and I go back to that Mach 3 lineup, like back in 1974. I mean, Burn was so huge for you guys. You played the California Jam, over 200,000 people. I mean, it was kind of different back then, because when David joined the band, it was almost like you were going to be the featured singer in Purple, and you guys kind of wound up splitting it. Was that something that was kind of hard for you?
No, when David, they wanted 2 singers, and when we auditioned David, his voice and my voice sounded different to one another. And that was the beauty of it, because he had a deeper voice than me. And we had the same vibrato and the same soul energy. And it didn't sound like Mark II vocals, but it sounded like, Deep Purple playing music. So it was an interesting change, because when you change a lead singer, it's never easy. It's just never, ever easy. So, I don't think we would have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. If Byrne would have been, a miss or a stinker, we would never have been in the Hall of Fame. 4 or 5 members of Deep Purple weren't inducted. So, David and I, were inducted because of the what we did in Mark III.
Well, you guys both still look and sound great. I love, of course, what David does still with Whitesnake, and you guys are just kind of sort of linked in history, and that's amazing, because I'm a huge fan, of that. And I want to get into this because the future of hard rock, Glenn, I have some concerns, because not only have we lost people just from unfortunate death. We've also bands like Motley Crue, Black Sabbath are on their farewell tour. Twisted Sister just tomorrow are playing their final show in America. There's a lot of bands, Glenn, that are just going away, and that's common. That's going to happen. It's just age. I mean, what about the future here?
Well, it's weird, because I don't know if I'm one of the only guys, but I'm a solo artist now, so I don't have a band. So it's like, I'm in a really good headspace as far as my strength, as far as my physicality and my mental state of mind and spiritual state of mind. It's all in one place. I'm in a really good headspace. And if I'm in that space, I can travel, I can tour, I can, perform, I can do, I can, as long as I'm healthy, and as long as I'm, got a sense of humor, and I can continue to do so. I think a lot of artists who reach a certain age get to a point where they just don't believe it anymore. They don't feel comfortable doing their thing. So that hasn't happened to me. So therefore, I'm going to still go out there and play to as many people as I can.
Which is just wonderful. And I know, Glenn, in the past, especially around the mid-'80s, you had a very public substance abuse issue that absolutely, and I mean, but just to have survived that and to be where you are now, I mean, it's kind of rare, really, to be able to recover from that like you have. Most people don't.
Well, it was a moment in the 80s where, and I say this again, this is in my book, I don't remember the 80s very much. So at the end of the 80s, where, I was really in trouble, my music was getting in the way of me getting stoned. So I just said, something, head to hell with the music. I'm just going to stay home and never leave my home in Laurel Canyon. And of course, let's just say a heart attack got my attention. So once I recovered from that, and got into recovery, I've been making music and slowly but surely getting around, touring all over the world. And I have great management, great agent, great band, great crew. I'm doing more shows now than I've ever done in my entire life. So we've just started the tour in June, and we're going to go through to October 2017. And, I do another album next September, so I'm very, very busy. Black Country are doing another album in January, so we're very busy at the moment.
Great. I was going to ask about that. That was a great project, and I'm glad to hear, that's being revisited, Glenn. And I tell you what, just what a career, and you just have this overall presence about you. I mean, your voice, just one of the best bluesy voices. And I think that comes from, I've always been such a fan of the bands that came from Great Britain that really started everything. I mean, when you talk about Deep Purple, you were in Trapeze before Deep Purple, but from Purple to Sabbath and Zeppelin, those bands are the ones that really started everything. I mean, and to come over to America, that had to be quite a shock, because America just kind of jumped on the bandwagon, and you had bands like Van Halen go from there. But those Britain bands were so big.
I think the Brits in the early, I don't know how old you are, but if you think about the early 70s, if you named 10 bands, there probably wasn't one American band, maybe Crosby, Stills and Nash, but it was the Beatles, the Stones, it was Purple, Zeppelin, The Who, Yes, Pink Floyd, and so on. It was just a huge amount of British bands, and I'm very fortunate to have actually played in two of those bands, so
Yeah.
it's been pretty insane.
Yeah, and Black Sabbath, they're on their farewell tour. I know that you worked with Tony quite a bit, and I mean, just tough. It's just tough to say goodbye. But have you had any plans at all to get with the guys or do anything as they're about to say goodbye?
Geese is a neighbor of mine, and Tony's one of my best friends. So they are, as you know, currently finishing their tour, and I imagine Tony's going to take some time off because he's actually in remission now from cancer, which is fantastic. So everybody keeps asking about Glenn and Tony, and the fact is we've done 3 albums together. He's a really dear, like a brother to me. I'm sure we'll do something in the future, but I wouldn't want to say when. But everybody keeps asking about it. But I'm so busy doing what I'm doing with my own band, and the return of Black Country Communion next year is also going to be another spectacle for me.
Well, Glenn, I tell you what, we can't thank you enough. I want everyone to head over to glennhughes.com. You can pre-order the album, which comes out November 4th. The album is Resonate. Guys, I have been able to listen to this the last few days. Your management sent it over to me. It's amazing. It is very heavy, very melodic, surprisingly heavy. I'm blown away by this thing so far, Glenn. So
thank you, man.
I just can't. Now, we got to get you to Kansas City here in the next year, and when we do, we got to connect. I'd love to come up and say hi and meet you, Glenn, because you've just been such a, so influential to me, to our show, to everyone in the hard rock business. Thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the tour, and we'll catch up soon, Glenn. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you, brother. Hello, Kansas City. I love you. See you soon.
Thank you. We love you. We love you too, Glenn. Thanks a lot.